Well, Jake Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on the DFL Daily. You are now the DFL endorsed candidate in southern Minnesota, in Minnesota's first congressional district. And you've been working hard since last April on this race. Tell us how you got here and where your campaign is going next.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a lot of hard work, obviously, but we started this campaign by listening. And what we heard was actually rooted very much in my story. Growing up in southern Minnesota, things are too expensive. They're too expensive for working families. They're too expensive for folks all across southern Minnesota. And unfortunately, we have a congressman here, Representative Finstead, who through his votes, through his voice, is just actively making it worse. And so for a guy who campaigned in 2024, standing in a grocery store saying, I'm going to make groceries cheaper, for him to go to Washington, D.C. and basically just sell us out has really rubbed people the wrong way. And so we've been doing great work here in southern Minnesota. The campaign's going really well, and a lot of folks are starting to pay attention and tune into the work. But for us, it has always been rooted in the stories that we are hearing right here in southern Minnesota, and it's really important that we have a representative who shows up, listens to us, and then goes to DC and actually does something about it.
What's amazing to me, Jake, is that every chance Brad Finstead has had to make the problem better, to make life more affordable, he's actually taken the opposite vote, from the big ugly bill that gutted healthcare support throughout southern Minnesota and hurt our rural hospitals, to voting in support of the tariffs, continuing the tariffs, to the war in Iran that he's supporting now that jacked gas prices up across the district. Tell us a little bit about what you're hearing most from voters in terms of affordability. Is it paying at the pump? Is it paying at the grocery store? Is it their health care? What is the thing that seems to be worrying them the most?
I mean, honestly, it's all of the above. You nailed a lot of them. I mean, the tariffs are a massively big deal here in southern Minnesota. Listen, we're an agriculturally rich district. People come from all across the country and the world to see how we do farming here in southern Minnesota. And so to have a congressman support tariffs that are wreaking havoc on export markets, and then layer on top of that an Iran war that, of course, I feel it when I go to the pump. So many people do when you're paying for unleaded E15, and you're seeing it over $4 a gallon. That's bad. But now also the cost of diesel over $5.50 a gallon. And so anything that gets to us by road, by sea, by air is also now filtering its way into the economy. So it doesn't matter if it's clothes or food, just childcare, housing, all of these pieces are just making life incredibly unaffordable. And so to have a congressman just so actively hostile to what we need in southern Minnesota is just a disaster. And so everything that we're hearing out of this administration is right now, we don't care. We don't care about the people in southern Minnesota. We're going to do what we want anyway. And so it's up to the people of this district and the state to show them otherwise.
You're a product of southern Minnesota, Jake. Growing up in Stewartville, you now teach the next generation of problem solvers in Rochester. You're obviously living the values that you learned from southern Minnesota, that of hard work and helping others while you're at it. How did those values get you interested in politics in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I got to grow up in Stewartville, lower class, like lower class, right? My dad was a garbage man, my mom was a meter reader, and having 10 siblings. Listen, we needed hard work for sure. We also needed local community supports. Like I benefited greatly from a school district and a church community, next door neighbors and extended family members who just wrapped their arms around our family. We were also SNAP and a Medicaid family. And I wouldn't have gone to college if it wasn't for Pell Grants. And so I got to grow up in Stewartville, living what I thought was an American dream. The fact that every single person, no matter their background, should have an opportunity, should have a shot at a middle class life where you can afford some things, raise a family. And so that's where I come from. And that's who I am, right? I've been a public school teacher for 20 years. I got four boys who are, I mean, they're hungry. They eat a lot of food, and they're growing like weeds, So we're going through clothes, we're going through food. We're just like people all across southern Minnesota are. And we need a government that's as good as the people that live in southern Minnesota, that's going to take care of each other. It's the best of who we are. And unfortunately, what we're getting right now are not those same values that we see in southern Minnesota. coming out of Washington, D.C. And so we got to go. We got to fight for our values in southern Minnesota. And that's exactly what I'm seeing from people all across this district. People are willing to show up. People are willing to, sort of fight for the things that they know are right. And that is an affordable lifestyle where we can live our values here.
Jake, one of the things that impresses me about your campaign is that you and your team understand Southern Minnesota is not going to be a cakewalk. Brad Finstead has held this seat for quite a while. We haven't actually held the seat, I think, since 2018. You understand that it's going to take showing up almost anywhere in order to earn the vote and earn the trust of voters. I know that you're a listener. You're curious about what voters are facing, and so you're hearing a lot from voters. I want you to tell the story about the pub that you stopped at and what happened 2 weeks later.
Yeah. And there's an update to this story. So, one of the things that we've purposefully done throughout this campaign is show up in places where maybe politicians don't always show up. And so we were on our way to Mankato from Rochester, and we had a little bit of wiggle time in the schedule. And there was an off ramp for Claremont. And I said, "Hey guys, what's in Claremont?" And nobody on the team knew. I said, "Well, let's stop. Let's find something. Let's find some folks." And so I took the off ramp, and they said, "Well, there's a pub here in Claremont. Let's stop in." I said, "Great, they're open. Let's stop in." And so I walked in the door, and my team, they wanted to film, and I walked in, and the guy behind the bar, his name's Andy. He said, "Hey, what's going on there? What's happening here?" And I said, "No problem. I'm Jake. I'm running for Congress. We're just out here meeting people. Is it okay if we film some stuff, talk to people?" He said, "Oh yeah, so we're not in trouble. It's fine. Yeah. You're good. You're good." And so we had great conversations. We had hard conversations. Most of the people in that pub were Republicans, independents, or apolitical. They just think the whole system's bust. And so we had good conversations. We talked about how do we get our money back? We talked about, healthcare. We talked about infrastructure, childcare, talked about public safety, talked about a lot of things, and we left. And it was good. It was great. The transformational piece for us was when we went back 3 weeks later. And when we went back 3 weeks later and walked in the door, Andy, who's still working behind the bar, he saw me when I walked in, and his face absolutely lit up. Came around the bar. He said, "I can't believe you came back." And I said, "Of course we came back. We had a great conversation last time. Hope to do it again." And he spent the next 40 minutes introducing me to folks who I didn't know yet. And with his hand on my shoulder said, "This is my friend Jake. He's running for Congress." And so for all the people who say, "Jake, how do we cut through the misinformation? How do we reach folks who voted Republican in the past?" That is how we do it. We do it by showing up, by listening to people, and then speaking to those values. And actually, we just went back through Claremont yesterday, stopped in the pub again, talked to folks who knew us. Doug, the guy who was there the first time we were through, said, "Wow, you came back. What are you hearing?" And so it's great conversations with our neighbors because what I'm finding is, contrary to what some people in Washington might want us to believe, we here in southern Minnesota actually have a lot more in common than we have apart. We care about affordability. We care about tackling corruption. We care about investing in our small towns, and that's what we're seeing in Claremont and all across southern Minnesota.
That's fantastic. One of the remarkable things we saw this year is that 9% of the people coming to caucuses in southern Minnesota for the first time were Republican. We've never had Republicans participate in our process like this. I think it's a sign that Republicans understand that Brad Finstead is missing in action, that he's abandoned southern Minnesota, that he only wants to curry favor with Donald Trump. And we in Minnesota and folks in southern Minnesota are stepping up to nominate you to take on Finstead. So why is it time to fire Finstead?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to a pretty simple premise. Unfortunately, Brad Finstead chose his party over the people of southern Minnesota. And I think there are Republicans, Democrats, and independents who don't want that from either party. They want somebody who's going to show up, think critically about the problems that we are facing, and then do their very best to speak to those values that we share. And unfortunately, Congressman Finstead, time and time and time again, has chosen his party over the people of this district. And I think there are a good number of Republicans, we're seeing it in the numbers, there are a good number of Republicans who are dissatisfied with that and are willing to step up, show up for any campaign, any effort, any party that is willing to speak to the dissatisfaction that they are feeling. And so if Congressman Finstead isn't going to do it, they may have voted for him in the past, but they're looking around saying, I wonder if there is anyone who's willing to speak outside of their party, who is willing to think independently and critically about the problems we face and then lead with that voice. There just haven't been enough times, if any, where Congressman Finstead has spoken out against his party. And that's just not right, regardless of which party you're in.
Well, one of the things I saw recently is all the press coverage. You were talking to the press, and Brad Finstead just not responding to press questions from the Mankato Free Press. When he did talk to KEYC, he said he didn't want to do town halls because he didn't want to have to listen to the hissy fits of the people he represents. So then we started calling him Hissy Fit Finstead. I think we should have a name for this coalition of former Finstead voters, and we'll just call them former Finsteads. Let's get a big group of them together and do everything we can to win this race. Jake, last question. What gives you hope?
Boy, I tell you what, I get to travel all across southern Minnesota. And the thing that gives me hope are the conversations that I am having with my neighbors, with folks all across southern Minnesota who maybe haven't been engaged in politics before, who didn't think it was a big deal, didn't think it mattered to them. But human nature is when it touches us in our communities, when we see our healthcare clinic close, when we see the food shelf overburdened in a way that is just unbelievable, and we thought, I thought someone was taking care of that. When we see these things happening in our communities, and then we look around and say, nobody else is coming to save us. We're seeing Republicans, independents, and Democrats turn out in record numbers, standing on street corners with signs saying, we got to do better, rallying together with our neighbors of all parties to say, we deserve a voice that we don't have right now. Those are the conversations. Those are the things that I see that give me hope. And so as we move forward in this campaign, listen, while Congressman Finstead's not going to host one public town hall meeting, calling his constituents a pitchfork-wielding mob throwing hissy fits, as you said, we've said since the beginning, we're going to host a town hall meeting in every single county. And then when we win in November, we're going to host one every term until people kick me out of office. People deserve a congressman or a congressperson who shows up, and that's exactly what I intend to be. And the people of this district are rallying around it, and that gives me hope for democracy. It gives me hope for Minnesota. It gives me hope for our country.
Thanks so much, Jake Johnson, our candidate for Congress, our DFL endorsed candidate for Congress in southern Minnesota, Minnesota's first congressional district. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you for running such a great campaign. You give me hope. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much.